Okay, this is it, Murph.
It is.
This is almost it. This is almost it for the year. We've got one more episode after this, but this is episode 126, constituting the 126th attempt to silence us. We shall not go quietly into that dark night. I think that was that Independence Day. Isn't that what the president said right before the aliens attacked?
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds good. Hey, but we're like a cheap penny, man. We keep returning.
We're like hemorrhoids. We keep flaring up.
You can't get rid of us.
Well, guys, welcome back. Episode 126, Game of Crimes. You know who I am. You know who he is. But in case you don't, I'm Morgan, and who are
Murph.
you this week? Murph?
I'm Murph.
You're Murph.
I remember that. I can't remember my real name.
Can't remember. It's his stage name. It's what he uses in the movies. We'll talk about that in a second, too. Hey, guys, real quick, thanks for joining us. Just some quick housekeeping. Head on over to Apple, Spotify, hit those 5 stars. You guys help us out when you do that. Share the love, share the show. Let everybody know that thing we call Game of Crimes. Just head on over there. Also, head on over to our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com, for everything. We put merch there. We've got our episode lists and our book list too. We just had another book come out, some great stuff. You guys are going to love this. Also follow us on that thing they call social media at Game of Crimes on Twitter, Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram, but you got to be at patreon.com/Game of Crimes, because we just had fun. Actually, we had fun with our latest episode of 911. What's your emergency? You got to hear the story about the 2 cops. I'm 35. 35.
I'm number 4. Oh, man. I hope if my friend hears that, he doesn't get pissed at me. It's a good story.
It was so much fun. We're doing a couple, we got that coming up. We got our Q&A coming up. We'll be recording that here in a couple days. We've got You Can't Make This Shit Up, which definitely you can't. We've got our review. We did Black Klansman last time. That was an interesting movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. And am I still out of the doghouse?
You're on secret probation. You've graduated from double secret to secret probation. So you got one more to go.
All right. And I've already got one in mind. So it's going to be a good one.
Oh, it's going to be a good one. But guys, join us definitely over there, patreon.com/Game of Crimes. We've got a lot of good stuff. Also, come join us at our fan page, Game of Crimes Fans, run by Sandy Salvato, our favorite mafia queen, who rules with an iron fist and a velvet glove. She can smack you and make you feel good at the same time.
There you go. You can't beat that.
You can with an iron fist, but with a velvet glove. So just head on over to Game of Crimes, type in Game of Crimes, or head on over to Facebook, I should say, type in Game of Crimes Fans, and you will get admittance into the inner sanctum where hilarity, jocularity, and sometimes, individuality and definitely fun jokes occur.
Oh, there's some good stuff on there. These people, they have a great sense of humor.
You're sick. You people are sick. You need you need psychiatric help.
But you know what? They come up with some really good ideas for us topics to bring on the show.
And did not one of our guests we recently recorded come from somebody from our fans out there?
Who was that?
The one we just got through recording.
Oh, yeah. Came from, holy cow.
We just stopped recording 10 minutes ago. Who? What? What did I do?
It came from Carlo. Oh, come on, computer. Carlo Natasi. So we listened to you, brother. We listened to you, and we got the recording. You'll hear it after the first of the year.
What episode? The one we just got through recording 10 minutes ago.
Well, we've had others. I was wondering which one you're talking about. Okay, you can tell we're going downhill from.
Oh my God, it's definitely
right?
The weekend. Hey guys, but well, you guys know this is a show about crime. We talk about bad people doing bad things and bad people doing bad things to good people. We take the story seriously, but you can definitely tell from this. What, Murph?
We never take ourselves serious, especially Morgan.
Well, and in honor of this week's episode, I've got a collection of stories from this person's hometown. So, but Murph, before we get started, I have to ask you, you know what time it is? Do you know what time it is? I know it's the weekend, but do you know what time it is?
I think it's time for
Small Town Police Blotter. Hey, oh no, Oklahoma, where the felons are really, really weird. All right. Well, hey, guys, you're going to find out about our guest in a minute, but he hails from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I thought I would just go to the archives and pull some Tulsa stories. You ready, Murph?
I'm ready.
We've had people that have been arrested and they wear some stupid shirts, like, the dope shirts, like I'm really baked, or, hey, I'm hiding the drugs, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, Murph, if you were let's say a smaller, more petite guy, and you're getting booked into jail, And it was not like the crime of the century, but possession of marijuana with intent to distribute, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, possession of paraphernalia, and you're getting locked up. Your T-shirt might send the wrong message, especially when it says, "I would cuddle you so hard."
Oh. Because there are people in jail that will take you up on that.
Von Tucker, 23, is going to learn a rough lesson.
Oh, yeah, he might walk funny when he comes out.
He spent several hours in county lockup, I think with his back against the wall, before he was released early Sunday after posting bond on the felony and misdemeanor counts. So, hey, pro tip there, Von Tucker out of Oklahoma. Don't wear T-shirts like that.
You might hear something like, "You got a pretty mouth, boy."
You got a pretty mouth. Hey, come on over here.
So, we're still going downhill.
We are, boy, and it's going to get worse now. This next one, boy, this next story stinks. Well, it's about a peeping Tom. First of all, he's a frickin' pervert because he's spying on a woman and her young daughter. Mm-hmm. According to Tulsa County Sheriff's reports, Kenneth Webster Enlow, and when you see his booking picture, dude looks frickin' creepy. He was trying to get an up the skirt shot of a 29-year-old woman and his 7-year-old daughter. It's where he was attempting to get it from. The woman told investigators that she was taking her child to the bathroom when she saw that there was a man underneath the toilet looking up at her and her daughter.
What?
He was hiding in the porta potty.
Oh, down in.
This is the best part, though. These are smart deputies. After they were summoned to the park, Enlow was removed from the tank by rescue workers who used a fire hose to clean off the grimy 6-foot, 240-pound suspect, who, as deputies noted, was covered in feces.
Oh, what an idiot! Oh, that is so gross. Oh.
No, that's the explanation. He claimed to investigators that a woman named Angel hit him in the head with a tire iron, then drove him in a 1972 Chevy Monte Carlo to the park and dumped him in the toilet.
Right, 240 pounds.
Now, you might think you almost might believe that until you go back and you find out, he's had some problems before. So this isn't not like his first time with the law. So he was booked into jail and held on a $500 bond. They still hit him with the peeping charge.
What? Instead of climbing out of the toilet, he decided to pull his camera out and take a picture of somebody.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, you know what's even worse than that? This next one, Murph.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And when you see the woman and man duo, you're going to go, ugh. So this woman is facing arraignment Monday on charges she was engaged in lewd sex acts that were her and her boyfriend, had made some home movies. He filmed her during some of these acts. According to the affidavit, Waylon sought to sell the obscene videos. Waylon is the woman with titles like Buddy and Lucky. Buddy and Lucky are dogs.
Yeah, I kind of thought that.
Yep, and here's why she rejected the plea deal. She was going to give a plea, but guess what? You get charged, you get arrested for that down in Oklahoma. They charge you, and you have to register as a sex offender, even for dogs.
Yeah. You know what? Thank the good Lord, we got some fine law enforcement professionals out in Oklahoma, many of whom we've had here on the show.
And one we got fixing to come up on the show, Cooter, but I'm telling you, if I'd run out there and I saw that dude hopping out of the toilet, I would have first of all had fire department pull him out and hose him off before I would even get him anywhere near my patrol car.
Oh, and you know what? If he ran, I certainly wouldn't tackle him.
Nope. You're just going to go to jail tired, buddy. Just keep going.
That's right.
All right. Well, hey, Murph, let's get to this because you and I had the honor of being on this gentleman's podcast as well as bringing him onto ours. It is somebody you guys affectionately know him. You saw him when it was called Live PD, then A&E, got stupid. They took it off the air. And now it's back as On Patrol Live, and he's got his own show coming out, which you'll talk about. But Sean Sticks Larkin is our guest this week.
Yes, sir. That's had the honor of meeting Sean in person out in Oklahoma at a conference with Wayne Stinnett, who was episode 101 here on Game of Crimes. And Sean he's just a cop. He's a cop who has done really well for himself. You're going to hear how he got involved with PD Live and On Patrol Live and all the different shows he's involved with. But as he'll tell you, just like Javier and I, just like you, Morgan, we're doing things in retirement that we never even dreamt about doing. So Sean's, he's been big in the news on some of his girlfriends he's had along the way and things he's gotten to participate in. And now he's a married man again. And just wish that we could have shown his video to show you the room he's sitting in, and you'll hear us describe it at the beginning of this interview. But
well, we decided we would have Murph wouldn't participate, obviously, but we had an adult beverage. He says, "Well, I'm going to crack one open too." Wait till you hear the description of the beverage room.
Oh my gosh,
that he is sitting in.
I told him, you'll hear me tell him. My oldest son, would love coming to visit you, Sean, in your man cave there, because he's a connoisseur himself.
And appropriately, and quite, smartly, Sean refused to disclose the location of his house. He says, "I ain't telling you boys shit."
Oh my gosh. This is a great interview. And he's such a personable guy. I mean, somebody who has attained the fame that he has and hasn't let it go to his head, man. He still bleeds blue.
Still a good old Midwest farm boy like me. But Murph, we won't hear about this, and we won't hear about Sean Sticks Larkin unless I ask you, are you ready to play the biggest, baddest, most dangerous, and feces-friendly game of all?
Feces-free.
Feces-free Game of Crimes. Game of Crimes, what do you think?
Absolutely, everybody. So get in, sit down, shut up, and hold on. Here we go with Mr. Sean Sticks Larkin.
Our next guest is the star of Stage, the streaming screen, and the dude has the biggest collection of bottles I've seen in one video shot.
And has probably been listed in several lawsuits.
I have a current active one going right now, believe it or not. So,
and to put a face with a voice, since it is a podcast, you've seen him on TV when it used to be called Live PD. And you notice they never made a show called Live FD. There was a reason why. And then it's called On Patrol Live. And now he's got his own series on Fox Nation. The man, the myth, the legend behind the bourbon bottles, Sean Sticks Larkin.
Welcome. Guys, pleasure to be here. Pleasure. Thank you so much.
No, it's we've been wanting to get you on the show for quite some time. I know
I was going to say, it's been a long time in the making. And it's been mostly my fault, but I'm glad to be here.
Well, no, we're returning the favor because I think both Murph and I have both been on with you, right? Cocktails and Cocktails.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of that, but you guys missed the magic before we got started. So, as guys do, we like to compare things. So,
we're comparing. Hey, back off that now just a little bit. I'm old.
On my OnlyFans for $9.99 a month, you too can see this comparison.
Well, I'll tell you, I got this. I had to order this from Belgium. There's only one place. I had 6 boxes come in from Belgium. And one of them is the Hercule Poirot Stout glass, and you saw the little beer glass I had, and then I've got my Larkin Viking horn full of beer. And you were getting jealous, Sean, so you decided to go out and whip it out too. What'd you whip out?
Man, I'm a bourbon connoisseur collector, and so ironically, you happen to have your bottles handy, and I'm set up in my my little den, I guess we'll call it. That's got my collection of bourbon and whiskey and whatnot. So that's what I've got behind me. And just to make this thing proper, I pour myself a little drink as well.
Dang.
Well, and we're not talking about like a couple bottles. Tell us, how many bottles do you think you have there?
Man, so I kind of got into this. I didn't even, funny story. I worked for Anheuser-Busch when I was in college, and I drove a beer truck. So I was kind of a beer guy my whole life. And then I kind of got into the old, vodka as I became sophisticated and older. But when we started with Live PD, one of the great things about that show, it is live every Friday and Saturday night. And so after the show on Friday, we filmed it there at the A&E headquarters in Midtown Manhattan, New York. And after the show, it didn't matter if you were a production assistant that ran and got coffee for people before the show, or you were a sound person, a lighting person, the producer, they have a Emmy award-winning director by the name of John Gonzalez. Everybody hung out together after the show and drank and had cocktails for about an hour or so before everyone went home. And so Dan Abrams and John Gonzalez, who's, like I said, the director, producer, is a guy named John Zito. These guys were bringing like high-end wine and bourbon. And, I was just cop dude from Oklahoma that drank beer. And so I started getting into it and started drinking this stuff with these guys. And man, once I got into the bourbon world, I was like, man, this is pretty good. And then I started getting into the collecting of it. And then I went all in. And, kind of the way I describe it's like, if you were a kid that ever collected baseball cards, there's some that are out there that are just very hard to get. And yes, they're worth a lot more, than what the standard retail is on it. And I have quite a collection here, I guess, if you were looking at it for investment purposes, but that's not it. I've been very fortunate with everything that's come through this TV stuff the last couple of years. And I've tried to have this here. So friends, anybody that comes over, man, they have an opportunity to, to have some really good bottles that you just can't walk into any liquor store and find. And that's what I think this type of stuff's for. It's, the opportunity for me to be able to have it, but to share it with people. And this is kind of the spot when guys come over and we have a cocktail.
Well, and you were showing us before we started recording here, I think you got more bottles than a liquor store does.
Man, it is, it literally is set up like a liquor store in here. And, I've got legit over, I think 400 or so different bourbons and whiskeys. And it's everything from what they call a daily drinker that you can, find in a store to some pretty, I've got, I think right behind my shoulder here, the one I'm pointing out with my thumb. That's a 1970. Like it was bottled in 1970. And that's an old Weller 10 years. So, that thing was put into a barrel in 1960.
So the question is, do you have any Pappy Van Winkle?
Mm-hmm. I do. Actually, I've got the whole lineup, man. So I've got the 23 year, which I just got a couple, 6-8 weeks ago. I've got a 23, a 20, a couple Pappy 15s. I've got the rye, what they call the Lot B, and then there's one called it's 50-50 if people call it a Van Winkle product, but I've got that as well. So there's some couple like real specialty Van Winkles that are out there that are older, and they're thousands upon thousands of dollars. Thousands and thousands. So some of these bottles in here are several thousand, but.
So the big question is, you're so sophisticated now when you drink, do you hold your little finger out when you drink?
Actually, I'm so sophisticated enough that somebody else pours it for me into my mouth. And I make them hold their finger up. So.
There you go. That's
I
being in
tell
charge.
Yeah, I don't have as many bottles as you. I have a healthy collection. I got a commercial beer fridge in the basement, but I'll tell you, kind of similar to beer. I just had for me, I announced it on our Patreon thing, but I just finished a milestone. I submitted my manuscript for my thriller book to a guy that I've been working with. He works with all the big authors like Jack Carr and Brad Thor. So I poured me it's actually been rated the world's best beer. It's called West Vleerteren, and it comes from one of the Trappist monasteries over there. One bottle of that, 11 ounces, is $56 just for a single bottle. You want a 6-pack, it's $300. So that was I don't drink those too often, but when I do, there's a reason.
Listen, I can't be outdone here because you're a beer guy, you're a bourbon guy.
I know you got ginger ale.
I have a fantastic collection of Walmart water bottles in the refrigerator.
Oh, that's high speed. Well, I've got this a little Fuji water bottle over here next to me. So that's
well, somebody's got to be the designated driver with you alcoholics here.
That's it. Well, and like I was saying earlier before we went on the air. Yes, I have quite a collection, and I'm enjoying a bottle here tonight or a glass. I just pour a drink, if I'm home by myself 3 or 4 nights a week with a little, what they call like a little 2-finger pour, just a small little pour in the glass, and just something I sip on while I'm watching TV before I'm going to bed. So I don't get drunk off of it, anything like that. It's just,
honestly, it's the experience.
It is. I call it decorations. That's kind of the joke I have with my wife. I'm like, hey, I picked up a couple more decorations today, because they just go out on the shelf for looking at. So
my oldest son, he would love to be right there in that room with all those bottles. He likes.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why nobody knows where I live. I'll tell you that. So,
well, that's the thing too. Is I'll have a beer, like about 4 to 5 nights a week. I'll have one of the beers, but it's for the enjoyment of it. I've got. The other thing with Belgian beers too is you got to get the right glass for it. So I have a glass. I think I have a 50 or 60 different glasses just that go with the beer. So I always try and drink the beer in the right glass. I learned that when I was in Brussels. Went to the original Delirium Tremens Cafe. They had over 300 beers in there. Wow. Every beer had its own glass.
Well, you know what? So, ATF, if you got too many weapons, you got to get a federal firearms license. I wonder if you have too many bottles of bourbon, if there's a license you got to get.
Look,
That's a good question. Hey, I would like to know when and where in this country ATF is going, after the alcohol portion of their name. That would be interesting.
I saw a little meme on Twitter that says, I have 19 guns. When the ATF comes and takes them, how many guns do I have left? I said, I have 50 because I lied to the bastards. So
that's it.
well, hey, let's get started into this thing we call this thing of ours, Cosa Nostra, thing of ours. So, Sean, first of all, where the hell did you come up with the nickname of Sticks?
Man, is this
Are you a drummer?
Man, I've been asked that numerous times. I've been asked everything from, was I a drummer? Did I snap somebody's arm? And things like that. And
is that the current lawsuit?
That is not the current. The current lawsuit it's a BS deal, as most of them typically are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. But I was doing my internship with the Tulsa Police Department, and which was back in 1995-6 era, and the guys that I was riding with, there was two guys that were working in a unit that was called Footbeat at the time, and their sole purpose, their sole job responsibility was to patrol the housing projects. And they didn't take regular calls. This is, like I said, mid-90s when crack cocaine and the violence that came along with it was just everywhere. Gangbangers hung out on streets slinging dope and stuff like that. So they had I rode with them every Friday was what my internship was. Now, I was a 20 or 21-year-old kid, was not a cop. They gave me a ballistic vest to wear, so I wore a vest and I had a flashlight.
You were the designated target.
Pretty much, man. Pretty much. That's basically what I was. And actually, it was kind of funny. Every time you stop and talk to some gangsters, they would ask who I was. Of course, I look like a young kid, but they would tell everybody like I was a federal agent that was there deciding if we needed more officers in the city. And that's kind of because I had a vest on, so I was wearing plain clothes. But they get in a car chase with some guys, and one of the passengers bails out the car running, and I just jumped out and took off running after this guy. And I end up chasing him and catching him. And luckily, like most people that run from the police, he wasn't combative. He was just kind of passively resisting, actively resisting, basically. And I held him down on the ground, but I didn't have handcuffs. I didn't have a gun. I didn't have OC spray. I didn't have a radio, any of this type of stuff. And so this other officer, his name was Mike Eckert, he catches up and gets the guy handcuffed that I'm just holding on the ground. And he's like, "Hey, good job. You can't do that, fuck stick." And, he's like, I wasn't supposed to jump out the car. And so fast forward a year, we're in the police academy, and Mike Eckert happened to be one of the part-time firearms instructors. So for the whole 6-month academy, I'm running into him at the range the whole time, and he would just call me Stick or Stick Boy, which was short for fuck stick. So get all the other officers start calling me this. I get out on the streets. My whole career, I kind of worked in the gangster world, and they just heard me called Stick from the other cops. And for whatever reason, the streets kind of added an S to it, and they were like, "Sticks this, Sticks that." And it just kind of morphed into Sticks. And it's carried on obviously into, the TV world, and just it's a work-related name that has been my entire police career, has carried into the media stuff I do now, but nobody in my personal life calls me it, but I answer to it just the same.
How about that?
Hey, well, let's kind of rewind for just a second. So, thing of ours, how did you get started in this thing we call policing profession? I mean, you were talking about being a beer guy. Did you just keep running into the cops that were, hijacking a few six packs from you, or what's the deal?
Yeah, no, man. So I'm the son of two parents that were career military people. My father was in for 32 years, and my mom was active for 20.
Which branch?
Wow.
Both of them Navy. So yeah, both of them Navy. My father actually ended up retiring as a command master chief. He was.
So is there a naval base in Tulsa?
No. Yeah, all the water here. We got a couple nice lakes. I actually grew up. Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area. I lived in the city of San Francisco from 7th grade up through until I started high school, and then we moved to a suburb outside of San Francisco where I finished high school. But my parents divorced right before my senior year, and my father moved down to San Diego to take a job, military job down there. My mom, from the divorce, she had family that lived just outside of Tulsa, her mom and her sister. So she moved to Oklahoma. I actually stayed my senior year of high school up in the Bay Area with a friend of mine so I could finish school there. And my dad, because he joined the military, fresh out of high school at 18, and he was kind of that same belief. He's like, buddy, you finished high school. I've done my job. Good luck to you. And I couldn't afford to stay in California as an 18-year-old kid on my own. And I knew I wanted to be a police officer since probably, I was 17 years old.
Why?
And
where did that come? Where did that come from? You said you wanted to be. I mean, you grew up military. My dad was Army, but we did the same thing, move around all over the place. But where did the law enforcement aspect come from?
So just growing up, I think I started high school in 1988 and I graduated in 92. And just out there in the Bay Area, I was kind of one of these kids that was a hip hop kid. I grew up listening to rap music and thought I was like this little gangsterish type kid, and everybody I hung around was the same way. But I was always, academically smart. And, when things were happening out with my friends in the streets, I was always smart enough to keep myself out of trouble personally. But I was exposed to a lot. I saw a lot. And I just knew, man, I wanted to be a cop. I liked the action of it. I liked the adrenaline of it. I liked dealing with bad guys. I mean, as silly as that sounds, that, even as a cop, I think it was easy for me once I did become a cop, this white cop working predominantly in the Black community where we have our gang problem here in Tulsa. It was very easy for me to understand a lot that went on in that community and to relate to people there in that community. And it was just because of how I grew up and where I grew up at. And I think that had a lot to do with why I was successful working, with criminal street gangs and whatnot. And it was just, like I said, it was something I just knew, 16, 17 years old. I was like, hey, man, I'm going to be a cop. And so I left the West Coast, came to Oklahoma to go to college because my mom lived out here. And I had plans on going back to the West Coast to be a police officer. Did my internship in Tulsa, and they hired me right away. So been here since.
Hey, going back to when you said you were a kid and you were hanging around, you're smart enough to leave. What's the worst thing you saw out in the Bay Area when you were a kid?
Oh, man, dude. I saw not somebody get shot, but I saw, guys shooting at each other. I've been at a house party where someone's shooting. I was present when I saw people, breaking into cars and, fights. And we had a fight that happened at my high school that I witnessed where a guy used a chisel, actually. And I didn't know. I thought he just didn't know how to punch. I thought he was like hammer punching this guy in the back of the head. And it turned out he actually had a chisel in his hand, was hit into the guy's head. Jeez. This was as we were walking into school to start the day, 8:00 in the morning. Wow. Another night I was in what's called the San Joaquin School District. And so we had Vallejo, El Cerrito, Fairfield, Vacaville, and Napa. And Napa was like all the little rich white kids, and everybody else was kind of middle class, lower middle class. And we had been up in Napa one time at a basketball game, and we got in a fight. The guys I was with, we got in a fight at the Napa basketball game and got kicked out.
What was the argument about pairing, what to pair with the white or a red?
Yes, that was correct. We did not know. We were more drinking like Cisco and Mad Dog and Old English 800.
Well, Mad Dog 2020. Oh my God.
So, hey, it was like $2. You can get messed up back then,
Oh yeah.
I drank a whole bottle of Mad Dog 2020 the night before I left on a little airplane to go to Fort Lost in the Woods, Missouri for 8 weeks. I threw up on that plane for like 2 hours.
Oh. Yeah, that'll do you.
Yeah, see, we were higher class in West Virginia. We drank Reuniti.
That is. Yeah, you're a baller, man.
Yeah, Boone's Farm. I had the screw top of Boone's Farm too, man.
That's right.
I never got into Boone's Farm. So like I said, we would drink this stuff called Cisco, and it was like liquid crack. And they actually stopped making it. You could read about it. They quit making it because it was bad. But it tasted so bad that there was a stuff called Purple Passion that came in a 2-liter, and it was kind of like a wine cooler in a 2-liter. And that was like your chaser. So you drank the Cisco, and it was horrible, but it did its job. And then you drank Purple Passion just for the taste right afterwards. So
on the East Coast, we call Purple Passion, that's grain alcohol and grape juice.
Well,
there you go.
Well, that's a fraternity party. When I was in college, we had our Purple Passion. We call it our Blue Bunny party because after you drink enough of it, you saw blue bunnies, but it was Purple Passion. You'd get the old bathtub, put a liner in it, and start pouring in grain alcohol and iced tea and stuff like that. Oh, man.
Yeah,
we've come a long ways, guys. With you with your Belgian beer,
no, we
and
haven't.
Me with
I'm looking at all your booze behind
Walmart water
and his water. Correct.
Yeah, the only thing that's changed, pal, is the price of our.
That's it. You got a better budget to work with.
That's right. Well, so you started. So did you apply anywhere else, or was Tulsa kind of it for you?
No, I had reached out and I'd actually spoken to Seattle, Denver, and San Diego, like as far as the process to get started at each of those three places. And man, like I said, the guys that I did my internship with kind of helped guide me through the process, of trying to make myself a better candidate for Tulsa. And, at the time back then, they were really trying to recruit minorities and females. And, being a 22-year-old white male was tough. I was young, didn't have any experience, anything like that. And so I actually went through the Tulsa Police Reserve Academy as well, just to try to make myself a better candidate. And 6-month academy, I completed that. And I might have been a reserve for 2 or 3 months tops, and I only just did a couple ride-alongs. I think I worked like a half marathon, standing out there in my uniform type
Traffic
of deal.
control, yeah, baby.
Exactly. And then I got called. I got hired. So I started the academy in January of 97.
Nothing like going back-to-back academies, is there?
Dude, literally, that's exactly what I did. So the Reserve Academy, because it's regular people that are volunteering that, want to either one, get into law enforcement, or two, just, other people that are successful in their community and whatever private world they work in. And they just, they want to do something positive, or they, for the community. So you had me at like 22 years old in the academy, and you've got guys that are, 45, 50 that are very successful businessmen going through this together. And I worked full time for Anheuser-Busch. I had to be to work at 5:30 in the morning.
Ooh.
So I was getting off work 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon, and I either had my college classes or the academy. So it was a pretty busy life back then, but
wow,
I loved it. I had a good time.
We've had some other stars from Oklahoma law enforcement on the show here with us. Wayne Stinnett, you remember Wayne?
Oh yeah, out of Claremore.
Yep, and Brian Serber.
Brian Serber, dude, that guy is one sharp. How fast did he talk?
Very.
Dude, I think I talk fast. I was trying to stay up with him. I was like, slow down. I said, you speak too fast. He goes, no, you listen too slow, man.
No, that's it, man. That guy is sharp. And, he's written a book and stuff like that. I know Brian. I know both of those guys. I haven't worked much around Wayne. I mean, I know him out of Claremore, Rogers County area, but Brian Serber, I've been around him numerous times. So
how about a trooper named Branson Perry?
I know the name. I know who he is, but I've never personally met him.
Yeah, he's somewhat of a legend, I think, in interdiction is what we're finding out from other people.
Yep.
All studs, man. I mean, that there's a good legacy going out there in Oklahoma.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I mean, the state as a whole is very supportive of law enforcement, despite the stuff that's going on in other parts of the country. It's very well supported here. And, speaking for the Tulsa Police Department, we've required a bachelor's degree since 1997. And I'm not saying having a bachelor's degree makes you a better cop. I just think we have very well educated people that are coming into the job here in Tulsa. Our academy is just a little over 6 months long. We more than double what the state requires for pretty much everything from mental health to firearms to, legal law, you name it. So we get a lot of officers that come through that I think are pretty squared away. Again, I can speak for Tulsa, but I know the other agencies around are just as qualified, if not more as well.
Well, You moved to Tulsa, you moved to Oklahoma. One of the biggest decisions anybody has to make moving to Oklahoma is you got to pick sides. So who is it? Cowboys or Sooners?
Boomer.
Sooner.
I'm a Boomer Sooner. It was crazy. I had season tickets for years for OU for my family back when I was my first marriage. And I had 4 tickets. I've got 2 kids. So the 4 of us would go. And it came time for my daughter to go to college. And she actually went to Stillwater. So she went to OSU, Oklahoma State, and was a Cowboy. But now that she's got her degree from there and she's grown up and a little wiser now, she's back to rooting for the Sooners. So
kids eventually come around.
They come back around. They come back around. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, let's talk about you getting started then on Tulsa PD. So you go through the academy, you get out. Tell us a little bit, though, about Tulsa, because, when you and I talked on your podcast, my sister and brother-in-law used to live in Tulsa. He actually was a book publisher, Christian book publisher. They were in the Oral Roberts Towers at that time, which it was called, and they got married on the 3rd floor of the Oral Roberts Towers. I mean, just beautiful atrium, the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd been down to Tulsa a few times, but tell us about Tulsa, like what county is it in? How big's the city? How big was the department?
Yeah, so the the city of Tulsa is actually split between 3 counties. The majority of it is within Tulsa County. We do have a portion of it that's in what's called Wagner County, and another part that is in Osage County. And Osage is pretty. I mean, that's kind of country area, you know.
Well, how do you handle jurisdiction then? Are you sworn in all the counties then?
So if you make an arrest within the city, and let's say it's a state crime, let's say ex-con with a gun, I don't know. If you are within the Osage County portion of the city, you have to drive to book this guy up into Osage County Jail, which is up in Pawhuska, about an hour away.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
What did you do? Drag them across the line into the other county?
No, basically, if you wanted overtime, you went out and made an arrest in Osage, so you can get the overtime for driving up there, and you have to go to court up there. So if you go to court, you get an all-day overtime deal. Or if you were like, man, I do not want to end up having to go to Pawhuska at any point, you just never patrolled that portion of the city. So there's pros and cons you can do. In Wagner County, that's a portion of that's out in our East Tulsa area. And both of these areas are pretty small as far as what goes on in the city. The overall majority of the city is within Tulsa County.
So if let's say you had a chase that started in, the main part of Tulsa, again, I mean, it depends on where in Oklahoma, does it depend on where you start as well as where you end up? Could you take him anywhere based on that?
Yeah, it's going to be where you start. So if you started that in the Osage County portion of it, you would have to book the guy into Osage. And, it's kind of crazy because Osage is, like I said, it's very rural. It's country up there. And, just as any courthouse you're in at, depending on who your prosecutor is, depending on who your judge is, your sentencing could vary, just between, that type of stuff. And it would be the same type of thing out there in Osage. They took things very serious because they didn't have a lot of violent crime, that Osage County deals with. They're dealing with like legit ranchers and things like that. And so if you had somebody that was arrested for a rape or drug trafficking that was in Osage County, man, they kind of got the hammer put down when they were sentenced. Whereas in Tulsa, it's a daily thing to arrest somebody for, guns and dope, and, violent crime is pretty regular. And so they just, the sentencing was not as harsh, I guess, as a way to describe it. So even the bad guys themselves they don't want to catch cases out in Osage County because they know. They do. They know it's a little different.
I'm looking at a map here. It looks like there's a couple pretty good size Indian reservations right in north and south and west.
Yeah. So just, and I'll say this to any of your listeners or you yourselves, you guys want a podcast. I'm not the person for it, but Supreme Court passed a deal a couple years ago called the McGirt decision. Yeah. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. It has really, really, people outside of law enforcement, I don't think have any idea how
has to do with jurisdiction, right, and sovereignty.
Correct. So that's basically what it is. There was a guy, if I remember correctly, he was convicted for I think molestation of a kid or rape of a minor, and he was of Native American blood, had a card, and he challenged this thing, went all the way to the Supreme Court. That basically the state of Oklahoma the sovereignty, exactly that the state of Oklahoma or Tulsa County has not taken away the nation of that particular tribe, that it still existed there jurisdictionally wise. And the Supreme Court ruled in his favor. So it was completely dismissed. And we have had cases, and I mean, I could go on and on and on, but there was one that happened out of like the Oklahoma City area where 2 suspects, one of Native American and one not, were convicted, I think, for a home invasion, like robbery, rape of an elderly woman. And the guy who was Native American filed a deal under the McGirt decision to have his case thrown out because, again, saying the state of Oklahoma didn't have jurisdiction over him because he was Native and, the sovereignty. And they threw the case out on him. And so his co-defendant, who was not Native American, still sitting in prison for the crime, and the other guy got to go free. And so now it has really jacked us up on victims and suspects of crimes. We have to find out if they're Native American, are they a card-carrying Native American? And if in fact they are, either the tribe has to do the investigations or the FBI has to. So the FBI is not equipped to do murders, gang murders. That's not how they're set up. No,
and
that's
they're not going to handle
focus
domestic violence cases or burglaries or stuff like that.
Exactly. So it is, and that stuff is happening now. And, and it's just, like I said, people outside of law enforcement just really don't have any idea how tough this has made, or just even unfair, in my opinion. I mean, if doesn't matter who you are, the crime and the punishment should be applicable across the board.
Man,
So,
that is, and I remember reading that because I think I've listened or I read what one prosecutor said, or maybe as a state attorney general, but it's basically that's going to upend. And the other thing too, they go back and revisit a lot of the other convictions, right?
And
So a lot of things are getting thrown out.
Well, there was a guy, I'm not going to say his name to give him any credit here, but he's a violent street gang member, and one of our, he's a Hoover Crip, one of the larger criminal street gangs in the country, and he's a guy here in Tulsa. He's a suspect in several shootings and a couple homicides. Has had felony convictions, and we had caught him with a rifle, and with the 200 round drum magazines inserted into it. So he was being charged federally for it. Admitted post Miranda, it was his gun. He had it because he's a gangster and needs protection. I mean, it was a lock solid case, but because of this McGirt thing, that he was, again, his sovereignty of the nation, for his tribe, all of his previous convictions were thrown out. And so now it's no different than me catching one of you guys with a rifle. It's not a charge. So his rifle charge for being a felon in possession of a firearm is completely dismissed as well, because all of his previous convictions were dismissed. I mean, it's just baffling.
So if he's off the reservation, though, is he fair game?
It is, yeah. So well, the reservation covers a large portion of the city of Tulsa. It's considered, I mean, we've got I think Cherokee and Creek both, cover up a decent sized part of the city. So, that's one thing. Every time an arrest happens for a felony, or again, a murder, is your victim Native American? Is your suspect what tribe did you guys, did this happen at, jurisdictionally wise?
Wow.
So I just pulled up part of and this is what I remember saying. So it's basically said the court ruled in McGirt's favor, stating that the tribe continued to have criminal jurisdiction over all the land which was reserved for the Muskogee Creek Nation in an 1866 treaty with the government.
Yeah.
That is a lot of land, my friend.
No, it is. It's huge. I mean, it is. It is huge.
It covers more of Oklahoma than it doesn't cover, at this point.
Yep.
It looks like
we've got,
you got the Muskogees down south and the Cherokees to the east. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Seminole, Choctaw.
Well, Murph, great way to take us a diverge. Just ask one question.
Well, I saw that Jeremy Renner movie recently, Wind River.
That's a great movie.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to dispense justice like that sometime?
Oh my gosh, man! Absolutely.
Anything. You're under lawsuit right now.
Yeah, and I used to have this idea. I said, why can't we suspend the Constitution just one day a year and take care of issues?
That's a movie called The Purge.
Exactly.
There's a movie, that's the movie The Purge.
Somebody stole that damn idea. I could have been in Hollywood right now drinking fancy drinks with my pinky in the air.
That's right.
Well, let's talk about you getting started then in Tulsa PD. So when you hit the streets, obviously everybody starts off, they go through FTO, but then you work the streets. You work uniform. What was your initial 2 to 3 years like?
My first 3 years, I worked patrol in the northern part of our city, which was, still to this day, the most statistically violent part of the city.
What drives it? What drives the violence? Drugs, gangs?
Drugs and gangsters. Yeah. It's just, we all know it pretty much. Most of your victims of violent crime it's lifestyle. If you're involved in dope, you're involved in gangs. You take the domestics, out of it. Most of the people that are victims of violent crime, again, it's just the lifestyle they're living. But that area, was at the time, especially then, was plagued by crack cocaine and gangs that were running up there. And so that was, where I worked at my first couple of years. I loved it. Then I transitioned into that footbeat unit I spoke about earlier, patrolling the housing projects.
Oh, this time with a gun and a badge. And,
I actually had authority. The citizen arrest, was behind me. Those days were behind me.
And nobody's going to call you fuckstick this time if you go chase a guy down, right?
Yeah. Well, they were, but it was bad guys.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So due to manpower issues, our department had to get rid of certain units. We got rid of our mounted patrol, and we got rid of some of our specialty type units. The footbeat unit was one of them. And my supervisor I had at the time was going into our major crimes homicide unit in the evening shift. And he asked me if I wanted to go. And I thought, man, this would be awesome to go work some murders and stuff like that. So at, 26 years old or whatever it was, I went in, and about 3 or 4 months into, we have a shift change once a year. And about 3 or 4 months into it, I was like, man, this is a little too slow pace for me at this point in my career. I wanted to be out chasing bad guys.
You mean just in terms of number of homicides and cases that are working, it just wasn't active enough?
No, it's active. So that unit, you work every unnatural death. So suicides, homicides, but you would also go out on drownings, fatality car accidents, just that type of stuff.
Yeah,
but,
and that was more, having done that too, as a detective, it's like, that's not kicking the door, running down bad guys. A lot of that's it's the investigative piece of that.
100%. It's interviews and investigations, and obviously a critical, important part, of the job. And that's what, gets those type of cases through the court system and gets convictions and gets justice, for families.
It doesn't pump the blood though, man. It doesn't
pump the blood. No. Yeah. So I'll put it this way. I was driving, I had a Ford Aerostar minivan, which was nice.
The soccer, the mom.
Yeah. I went from a 95 Chevy Caprice with an LT1 to a minivan. And I was actually out.
Everybody walk away. You don't have to run.
Yeah.
Just
Here
walk.
I come, wearing my brown dress shoes and a pair of, khakis or Dockers and a collared shirt that says homicide on it. And I was up driving around one time bored up north, and I was going through this convenience store, and I see this gangster that I know, and he sees me, and he literally says, swear, sticks. The Hoovers just pointed a gun at me. This guy was from the neighborhood Crips, another rival gang. And so I get behind this car and it takes off, and I get on my handheld radio because my car doesn't even have a mounted radio in it. And I'm like, hey, I'm behind a car just did a PDW, pointing deadly weapon. And this car takes off from me. So I put my little flashers on. I don't have an audible siren.
Nobody's going to take that seriously.
Hang out the window and go, wee woo,
nope.
wee woo.
Pretty much. That was it. Pull over. And so they take off, and the car ends up hitting a curb. Guy bails. There's 3 guys in it. One of them was paralyzed from a previous shooting, so he didn't get out and run. He stayed in the car. But the other 2 guys get out and run, and I chase the driver and end up catching him. And I get in a fight with them, and I break my hand. So I ended up in a cast. So I was the only guy, I think, to this day that worked in our major crimes homicide unit that got in a pursuit and broke a hand still. So we knew it was, even my sergeant, he was like, hey, man, you need to get back out on the streets, man. That's where you should be. So I finished my year. I will say this, learned a lot. Even as a young cop, I learned how to be a better interviewer. I learned how to process crime scenes, how to be better about documenting reports, evidence collection, you name it. And, the things that were needed for court. So when I went back out to the streets, as a patrol officer later, and then even later becoming a supervisor myself, it was very, very beneficial to my career, even though I didn't want to be there at that time in it.
Yeah, and I think that's true for pretty much all detectives. You want to get that grade because it probably carries more money, or some agencies it carries more money, but also that distinction or that mystique that goes along with all the uniforms. But honestly, the uniforms is where the fun is.
Well, and that's it. Despite all the different assignments that are on, a police department, and Tulsa's a good sized department. You had asked, we at the time I was on, we had a little over 800 officers, and I know our numbers are down right now. So, we're a bona fide big city police department here in the country. And you have everything from canine to SWAT to narcotics to gangs to, long list of detectives, public PIO, school resource officers, patrol officers, whatever it want to be, whatever there is, I'm saying. But anybody that goes into law enforcement, you're like, man, I want to be a cop. I want to be a street cop. That's how you start out. That's what you envision. You wearing the uniform, driving the black and white. You don't, as a 17-year-old kid go, man, I want to be
in a pair of Dockers driving a minivan.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't do that. You don't want to do that even as a 25-year-old, I'll tell you that.
Because, chicks dig uniforms, but something about a guy in a minivan just doesn't quite do it, does it?
Hey, I'll say this. When you talk about the uniform, I like to think I have decent style. I can dress myself well, not embarrass anybody I'm with. The beauty of the uniform, and in addition to it being slimming for some officers, it also hides how poorly some people dress, because I will see somebody, whether it's in court or out in public, and I'm like, dude, who the hell picks your clothes out, man? And that's why at least the uniform, they look good every single day.
Oh man, we had those guys. Go ahead, Murph.
You remember how, people get to know you in uniform. They see you in plain clothes. Nobody recognizes you. They walk right by you.
That got me into trouble on my first marriage, because I was working midnights as a rookie cop in Salina, Kansas. And we'd always go into this same restaurant, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, eat dinner. And one of the waitresses there, nice lady, good looking. We show up one time in the evening. She started her shift like at 7 or 8 o'clock. And so 2 of us couples went out there. She goes, "Hi, Morgan. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you in your clothes." And I went, "Whoa, let's get back." Whoa. All right. Yeah,
I can explain, honey. I can explain.
Hey, but I used to, when I was training some of the guys too, or teaching the academy and stuff, so just remember, ugly guys look good in uniforms too. Don't let it go to your head, So
that's it. Absolutely. It's true.
So you get back out onto the street and you start causing, just burning a blue flame. Or were you guys, your uniforms were brown, weren't they?
When I first started, we actually, we kind of looked like a park ranger. I was not a fan of it. Growing up on the West Coast, all your municipalities out there pretty much wore that LAPD blue type of uniform. Yeah. But Tulsa at the time, we had a green shirt and we had these taupe tannish pants with a green stripe. And in 2005, we switched to basically that, LAPD, municipal blue you see in most larger cities across the country. We switched to that back in 2005. And it was nice because, though personally, I was a fan of it. Your old school guys that have been around forever, especially, towards the latter part of their career, they're like, man, I don't want to switch. I've been in this uniform 25 years and now you're going to make me wear this my next couple. So I understood that. But it gave our whole department, a new look, because, hey, a lot of guys are cheap. Their uniforms are, don't look the best, and they don't want to spend the money on go out and buy new stuff, or they don't have a supervisor that's like, hey, get your ass, back home and get a new uniform on. So at least gave our whole department a fresh, clean look at the time. And we've still been in that blue since 2005.
Yeah, I was a fan of that too. The one thing I loved about the State Patrol, all of our uniforms were custom tailored, actually by Battle Uniform Company. It was out of Oklahoma. So
yep.
We used to get all of ours from those guys. So you go back out, you hit the streets. So what do you end up doing after that once you start back out in your green shirt and taupe pants with green stripe initially?
So I actually went into a unit, a street crimes unit, which was kind of, we handled street level narcotics, crack houses, and, prostitution and things like that. Did that for 2 years. Loved it. Did hundreds.
Was that plain clothes or uniform?
It was plain clothes. So kind of blue jeans, raid jacket for search warrants type of deal. And again, that's still back when the crack cocaine was everywhere. And so, man, we were running like literally hundreds of search warrants a year. And it was just, you were chasing bad guys. It was a blast. I loved it. Went back out to patrol for a year after that. And then I tested for sergeant. Was fortunate to get promoted on that list. And when I became a sergeant, I had worked that north part of my city my whole career. When I get made sergeant, they send me to the opposite side, which at first I hated it because it was around
Osage County or what?
No, actually out towards, it was still Tulsa County, but it's out like where our restaurants and our mall are and all the traffic. It was just the exact
land. Yeah.
It was the exact type. The exact opposite of policing I had done for my career up to that point. Totally different types of crime you were dealing with. I was dealing with larceny. The officers working for me were going to larcenies and accidents, and people calling in because their next door neighbor's Lexus was blocking their driveway. That type of BS.
Nobody shot anybody today. What the hell?
Yeah,
what's going on? Any
exactly
dope cases? What's happening?
That was it. Yeah, it was. Are they crimes? Yes, but to me, they just weren't, crimes that I enjoyed working. But I will say this, as a brand new supervisor, I was in a new part of town around officers that I had never worked around before. So they didn't look at me as Sticks. They looked at me as Sergeant Larkin. And I think it was really good for me as a brand new supervisor, to kind of get myself figured out, established what type of supervisor I was going to be, what type of expectations I had. And I was there for about a year and a half, and then I transferred into narcotics, was in narcotics for a year, and then moved into gangs where I was up until I retired.
But when you went out there, and this, it's true from state, local, federal agencies, when the new guy's coming in, phone calls are made. Everybody wants to know what's the word on this guy. Is he a good guy, stand-up guy? Can you trust him? Can you respect him? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the unit or the squad that I came into, it had just been right after our shift change, basically. So I got promoted in July of 05, and our shift change started in August. Well, the squads had already been picked for the new shift change from August of 05 through 06. And my squad ended up having, I think I had 4 or 5 people that had like 26 to 32 years on.
Oh, geez.
And then I had 5 rookies get cut loose that year out of 2 different academies. So I had brand new cops that didn't know anything that would call me all the time asking questions, as a rookie cop does, because they don't want to mess up. And then I had the opposite. I had the old school guys that, I'd never heard from. I saw them at squad meeting and I'd see them at the end of the night type of deal. So I had both worlds there.
Well, did the old farts at least give you grudgingly respect because you were this? I mean, these guys could have tested for sergeant if they wanted to. They chose to be where they were, right?
Yeah, no, listen, hey, I loved being a patrol cop. I tested. I mean, God, honestly, the reason I tested was there was somebody out of my academy that I was not a personal fan of who she was as a police officer, because she was in my academy. I knew who she was. Didn't think highly of her then. And the reason I decided to test, obviously financially it's better and things like that. But my daughter had ended up in the pediatric ICU one year and over Christmas. And so I had taken some time off dealing with that. And when I came back to work, this particular officer I'm referring to, she had just promoted to sergeant, and she was training in my squad as a sergeant. And so I come back, and my first day back, she says she needs to do an inspection on my car. And so she's looking through my car, making sure, you've got all the equipment you're supposed to have and stuff like that. And I'm sitting here looking at her, and I'm like, this person had nothing to do with, has nothing to do with her being a female. It was just this individual.
Right.
This person, I just didn't think was a very good officer. And, I didn't think she should have even finished our academy. And
now they have a little bit of power.
She promoted, and I was like, man, this is who's doing my inspection right now. This is who I'm going to have to answer to. And that pumped me inside to test. And so I took the very next test. So anyways, going back to it, I never had any problems with the older people, man. I wasn't there to mess with them, held them responsible for what they're supposed to be doing. They knew what the expectations were, and I was fair across the board to everybody, whether it was a brand new rookie or, one of the senior officers. So I got along with everybody in there.
I think that's a reason that a lot of people promote. And for me, I would love being an agent. I was uniformed for almost 12 years and then joined DEA, and I love being an investigator, just a street agent. But the same thing, you see people getting promoted that are going to tell you how to run your cases who've never really made a case themselves. It motivates
Absolutely.
you. And it could be an age thing too for me as you're getting older.
Yeah, we used to call them REMs, REMFs, rear echelon motherfuckers. People who would love to sit in the swivel chair, be swivel chair commandos, know everything there is to know, but never worked. That was when you and I were on your podcast, Sean. We were talking about the work I was doing down at Justice, and that ended up being the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. We got them to consolidate DEA, ATF, FBI, everything into one system. Right. And I remember sitting in those meetings with these people who were wanting to pontificate and going, well, we ought to do this. And I finally looked at them and said, when's the last time anybody here actually slapped a pair of handcuffs on somebody?
Oh, that's it. I mean, we've kind of joked about it. Some of these people that have promoted, I mean, they need a GPS to tell them where the jail's at.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, dude, they've never taken somebody to jail. And here they are trying to tell officers how to do a case or what to do. And, just as you're talking about, part of that NIBIN stuff. And I was at a conference taught by DOJ. I can't remember. I think I might have been down in Florida, New Orleans or something like that. And there was an analyst up there for the DOJ that was sitting here talking street gangs and was like spitting all this out and showing all these pictures. I'm like, this person has never dealt with a gang member in their life, ever. And they're up here just acting like they know it all. And I'm like, man, you're an academic. That's what you are. You've never dealt with one of these people before personally in your own life. And it was just kind of funny.
Hey players, that is the end of part 1. Part 2 comes out, as always, on Tuesday. In the meantime, go check us out at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. Also, go check out our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com. We've got a lot more information there, including our book list. Any book written by our guests will be listed there. In the meantime, go check us out also, patreon.com/Game of Crimes. It's where we put a lot more content you won't hear on our regular podcast. We go into a lot more topics, and folks, it is a lot of fun. So go check us out, patreon.com/Game of Crimes. In the meantime, everybody stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow for part 2.